Hey guys, it's Center 8 Federation here, still retired, but with Vladivostok and America. And this isn't going to be your original alt-right show. This is going to be the Google Hangouts party, and we're going to be doing this thing called the YouTube Drama Minute. So Vlad, didn't you say you heard some leftist say something stupid?
I mean, every day I hear some leftist say something stupid. It's nothing new.
Okay, but what was the stupidest one you've heard all day today?
Well, I mean, I just watched the video by Libertarian Socialist Rants where he's picking on the YouTuber called Black Pigeon Speaks, and essentially his whole video amounted to just this uh, moral indignation over what Black Pigeon was saying. He was basically going, "Oh wow, just wow! It's the current year. Black Pigeon Speaks. His rhetoric is very similar to Anders Breivik, and this is problematic, and blah blah blah."
He says problematic a lot.
Yeah, I noticed he like essentially his old argument was basically um, uh, Anders Breivik and I think Elliot Rodgers. They committed these murders, and they believe the same thing that that Black Pigeon believed. That is, like, we should return to a traditionalist, patriarchal society, which, I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah,
But the problem with that is that you can attribute a ton of mass murders to pretty much any ideology.
Especially leftism.
Exactly. There have been a ton of communist murderers throughout history, a ton of
Well, can I give an example of a left-wing terrorist?
like for example,
Relators.
there was Valerie Solanas. Do you know who that was? She was a radical feminist back in the 1960s, and her whole belief was that men needed to be murdered and that women needed to take over society. And she actually tried to assassinate the painter Andy Warhol. So I mean, you can make the same argument that, oh well, feminism, it encourages women to lash out against society and murder people, so feminism is problematic too. But I mean, I like I don't think that feminism necessarily encourages people to kill one another. It's fucking stupid, don't get me wrong, but just because some crazy people throughout history have murdered people in the name of some ideology or another doesn't mean that that ideology is problematic.
Yeah, exactly.
For example, just because Adolf Hitler, gassed the Sixth Guerrillion, it doesn't mean that nationalism is problematic and that we shouldn't be nationalist and we shouldn't look out for the best interest of our country, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hold on,
Well, you better be.
Yeah, like every time somebody says that we need to look out for the interest of our country and we need to, put Canada first or America first, and we need to control immigration or any such thing, they always get compared to Hitler. It's always, oh, the next logical step is that you want to have genocide and ethnic cleansing, right there, Goy. Where nationalism leads you. But I mean, you can make the same argument against leftism too. Like, oh, you believe that everybody should be equal. You believe that there should be wealth redistribution. Well, next you're going to be advocating for the appropriation of grain, and you want to enact the Holodomor. But
yep, and they're gonna gas the whites.
yeah, but like, it's just so stupid that every time somebody expresses right-wing ideology, like nationalism or traditionalism, they always get compared to Hitler.
Yeah.
It's fucking retarded. And like, I don't want what Hitler wanted. I don't advocate. I don't think that Hitler is somebody that we should look up to. I mean, he plunged the German people into ruin and warfare. And I mean, because he invaded the Soviet Union, he inflicted massive atrocities and massive suffering and hardship upon the German people. So
Yeah, exactly. I also don't condone killing Jews either.
yeah, I don't want to kill anybody.
Also, Hitler, he murdered a lot of nationalist groups, which many of them were opposed to it, like the Stahlhelm and different groups. He basically destroyed them during the Night of the Long Knives.
Well, I mean, yeah, during the Night of the Long Knives, that's actually pretty interesting because I'm sure you guys are familiar with the term useful idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
communist.
basically a useful idiot is somebody who they help propagate an ideology by silencing inconvenient dissent. For the Nazis, they had the brown shirts, uh, um, the Schutzstaffel, who basically went around Germany in the early 1930s and beat the shit out of communists in the streets. Uh, and there was also the Stahlhelm, the Freikorps, and in the Soviet Union, they had their own form of useful idiots who went around beating the shit out of people who didn't agree with them. But these people are the first to be purged on the day of the rope, so to speak. Like as soon as the political group that they advocate for gains power, they're all going to be fucking exterminated. They're going to be the first ones up against the wall. Just look at the French Revolution. I mean, most of those people who were the violent ones who overthrew the royalists and killed and were responsible for killing Louis the 17th. Like they were the first ones to be killed during the Great Terror in Paris. So, I mean, though, like I think that the a lot of the SJWs and these very radical left-wing leaning people, like I guess AIDS Skrillex and all those other
All the
fuckers. Yeah. Those people are useful idiots. They're very useful at silencing dissent from right wingers and just browbeating people. But as soon as like the radical left gains power, those people are going to be fucking exterminated. Don't get me wrong. They're useful to an extent, but they're as soon as the goals of the ideology that they advocate for are accomplished, they are completely disposable, and they will be done away with and disposed at the soonest convenience.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why people like Ernst Röhm and all the Schutzstaffel members were executed because Hitler saw them as rivals. He saw that he acknowledged that the Schutzstaffel and Ernst Röhm and the rest of those people, they were very useful at propagating his ideology, but as soon as he gained power, they became rivals to him, and he disposed of them.
Yeah. All right. So which other stupid thing you've heard from leftists?
I don't know. To be honest, man, I don't really follow leftists very often. But one thing that I do want to talk about is the conflict or the unrest that's going on in Venezuela right now. Have you guys seen the videos of Venezuelan supermarkets?
Yeah, they got barely any food in them.
Yeah, basically there's some
It's like a Lende.
there's some video clips going around the internet right now of crowds storming Venezuelan supermarkets for very meager items like rice and grain, and people are getting trampled. I think I read an article recently that said that 5,000 people were injured in a recent supermarket rush by people who were trying to seize grain from a supermarket. Excuse me. And like this is the national.
The price controls don't work.
Exactly, because if you enact laws that say that everything is going to be priced below equilibrium level, then what that does is it increases demand tenfold. So people are going to be rushing supermarkets to get this cheap food, and nobody's going to be able to get it because it's going to be like survival of the fittest. Whoever gets to the supermarket first and beats the crap out of most of the people in line, they get the grain, and everybody else loses. So, I mean, that's what socialism brings you. It doesn't bring you a workers' utopia where you have like a land of plenty. It brings you just despair and like shortage of everything. I think that it was Milton Friedman who once said that if you imposed communism on the Sahara Desert, there would be a shortage of sand. And I think that's true because like Venezuela, it's not short of economic resources by any means. They have a ton of oil. They're very rich in forests, and I'm sure that you can grow, if you employ the land properly, you could grow a ton of food there to feed the entire population and then some. But what what socialism has done is it's created a shortage of food, a shortage of pretty much everything, including toilet paper and beer and oil, and it's just imposed complete despair upon everybody in the country. And I mean, Venezuela is the quintessential example of the failures of socialism and the failures of collectivism and communism.
Yep. Yeah, but here's the thing though. It's like if you tell that to a socialist, they never understand. But you want to know why? It's because
They have no brains, no education, and no future.
that's why.
No,
So it's pointless arguing with them.
if you confront a socialist or a Marxist with Venezuela, what they're going to say 9 times out of 10 is, oh, that's not real Marxism, or that's not real socialism.
Or they'll blame the United States for it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. It was the CIA. They were the ones that were responsible for this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard in Venezuela they arrested some guy a couple days because he wanted to start a coup, and he was gonna be Venezuela's Pinochet.
Oh, man, like, what we're seeing right now is just the beginning. I can guarantee you that in the next 5 years, we're probably going to see a civil war in Venezuela.
I think
Like the one in El Salvador?
It's
Yeah,
probably
what were you gonna say?
because Venezuela has a very large population. If you see unrest in Venezuela, it's going to be very violent. A ton of people are going to die.
Yeah. Hey, Adrian, what were you gonna say?
I think you're going to see more civil wars, just not there, in Europe as well, and maybe even America,
Yeah.
between the left and the right.
Yeah. One thing I found interesting was with you, Tom, when you were talking in the beginning of your Friday Night Shitposting podcast. I noticed something very interesting and I find to be true. Like when you said that many people like in Europe right now are starting to realize that there is a white genocide. Back in the day, people used to think that white genocide was just a white supremacist conspiracy or like a conspiracy like made by white nationalists to try and scare people and stuff like that. But then nowadays they're realizing due to their low fertility rates, due to all this stuff, and then seeing how their countries are being overrun by kebabs and no one's doing anything about it. People are starting to realize, oh shit, there really is a white genocide.
Yeah. I mean, I remember just like 5 to 10 years ago, where there was these political parties in Britain. Do you guys know about the BNP? With,
Yeah, the British National Party.
Nick Griffin. Basically,
Yeah.
those guys, they were very moderate by today's standards. They were basically saying, like, we need to maybe consider halting immigration for a little bit because, these immigrants are going to drown us out in the long run. And they were basically ridiculed as being racist, Nazis, fascists, and bigots, and like for no good reason whatsoever. Like they were just like their arguments were completely disregarded.
How long
But
ago
nowadays, those people would be considered moderates. Like in the West, like in North America at least, I'm sure that most conservatives would consider people like Nick Griffin to be like conservatives. But
Yeah.
now we have people like Donald Trump who are gaining momentum, and I think that's fantastic. Not only that, but people are recognizing that there is a deliberate movement within Europe to flood these countries with immigrants to make sure that Germans, in particular, become
White Europeans
their own
to
country.
be wiped out.
Yeah, I mean, like there's really no denying it at this point, and I think that the leftists have shifted from taking the moral high ground and just being like, oh, you guys are Nazis, this is ridiculous, it's a conspiracy theory, to saying, oh, well, we're just going to ignore this problem. This is not a problem at all, and if you acknowledge that it's a problem, you're a racist. Like they're basically burying their heads in the sand at this point and saying, la 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 la, I can't hear you. La la la, we're not going to acknowledge you. No platforming. We're not going to talk to you, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Nothing is wrong.
there's
Yeah.
a faction or a group that's behind this kind of immigration policies and the end of the whites? Because I've heard it's from Jews, but I don't think that's a valid argument.
Hey, Adrian, sorry, we could barely hear you. Can you like turn up the volume?
Let me do that. Is that better?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah.
You're saying there's like a real effort in eradicating the whites, and there seems to be evidence to support that. But I have a problem assigning who's responsible for that narrative. A lot of people say it's the Jews, but I don't really accept that. Do you know who's behind it?
I mean, it's mainly the left in general. You could probably say that there are Jewish leftists who are promoting this, but you can't say that every single one of them is Jewish.
Right. So this is more like a communist thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the book by Antonio Gramsci, or like look at what the Frankfurt School talked about, there's a part that says that like one of the best ways to destroy the West is by bringing a bunch of like massive non-white immigration to destroy the national identity.
Well, I mean, like I'm not saying it's only Jews or it's only one group or another, but I think it's kind of naive to just say that Jews have absolutely like nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
example,
I mean, a lot of them, to a large extent, do have a lot to do with it, but I wouldn't say like all of them.
let me just point out the obvious for a second to avoid like claims of anti-Semitism. Like I don't think that necessarily being Jewish makes you disposed to hating Western civilization or anything. For example, there are a ton of Jews that I admire. For example, Ayn Rand, Ludwig Wittgenstein, Milton Friedman, all those people. They've been extremely quintessential in building Western civilization, Western values. But I think that there is definitely a predominant element pushing for multiculturalism and cultural Marxism that is Jewish. And
Right. I don't see how this serves Israel though. This will end Israel. If Europe falls to like the hordes of the Africans, Muslims, Israel doesn't have a chance.
okay, but there's an excellent book by Kevin MacDonald called The Culture of Critique, and basically his thesis is that the Jews are pushing for this because it disrupts national identity. Because
It's not going to work. That's not going to happen.
if you have a country like Germany was in the early 20th century, that's very ethnically homogenous and they're very conscious of their national identity, then that's necessarily hostile to Judaism. For example,
Yes, but so multi. I saw.
if
Go
you
on,
look
go
at
on.
all the
I don't see how that's hostile to Judaism.
okay, if you look at all the countries throughout history, and especially in Europe, that have expelled the Jews, I mean, pretty much every country throughout Europe has expelled the Jews at one point or another. Especially like Germany, Spain, England, France. So, I
Right.
mean, like Kevin MacDonald's thesis is that if you allow Europeans to build a strong, homogeneous ethnic identity, then this is antithetical to Judaism, and that Jews will be persecuted, and
I
that
can see that case back then, but they have their own nation now, so that narrative doesn't really work.
well, I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, like it's really stupid for Jews to push this sort of like identity crisis now, but I think that a lot of people are. I think that even non-Jews are really pushing this narrative that the Holocaust will happen again if we allow Europeans to regain their national identity. I mean, as I said, I don't think it's just Jews. It's a very large demographic of people, mostly like leftists and communists. But the predominant narrative is that if we allow European countries to regain their national identity and build homogenous, high-trust societies, this is going to be antithetical to Judaism, and that if not Jews, but some group is going to be systematically exterminated.
Yeah,
This,
communists.
this is the narrative that they're pushing.
Yeah.
Well,
Also, you also have to watch this thing right here. Hold on, let me find it.
I think I agree with Adrian over there. I think it's because communists are afraid that people are going to exterminate them one day, which would not be a bad idea. Um, you
Well,
know.
I don't
Watch this.
I don't want anybody to be exterminated.
Oh, me neither. I'm just saying it's like communists are afraid that if people don't accept their ideology, they won't be able to overthrow all of civilization and set up a one world government.
Transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic
Barbara Specter.
societies they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Yeah, I think it's very narrow-minded to blame Jews for what's going on right now in the West. I think that Jews are not the only ones responsible. After all, most of these big proponents of multiculturalism are not Jewish. For example, Angela Merkel, as far as I know, is not Jewish. David Cameron is not Jewish. Barack Obama is not Jewish. Most of these world leaders in the West are not Jewish at all.
They're all on the left, right?
Yeah, it's predominantly leftism that's pushing it. But I mean, I'm not going to say that Jews don't like. Judaism does not play a role at all.
Yeah.
Well, left Jews play the role.
Yeah, you can say Jewish leftists because I know a bunch of like right-wing Jews right now. I could name you some of them. They actually oppose most of like the migration that's happening in Europe, and many of them even understand that like if let's say the West falls, they know that Israel's not going to survive.
Yeah, for pretty much all of European history, you have to understand that Jews have been an intellectual elite for both like right-wing and left-wing ideologies.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, it's only natural that Jews are very overrepresented within these like cultural Marxist people who are pushing for multiculturalism.
Yeah, I don't like the storm. There's a lot of Stormfront elements coming in, and a lot of it's valid, but I don't like the way they're pushing it. They're blaming Jews for it because it creates a false enemy.
Yeah, I mean, it's wrong to just blame the Jews.
Yeah,
well, there's a lot of that going around.
Just start screaming around saying 1488 gas the kikes. That's wrong. But other than that, to say that Jews are not involved, it's also a little bit naive.
Yeah, it's very narrow-minded to say that Jews are not involved at all, and it's also very narrow-minded to say that all our problems are caused by
Jews. It's just to say that like that like not all Jews are involved is equivalent to saying that all the Jews are involved.
So wouldn't it be more valid and appropriate just to say this is a left problem? This is a problem that the left are putting on us?
Yeah, it actually is because most of the time you see that it's mostly the left that are promoting this. Like kind of like what Tom says, David Cameron, Angela Merkel, and Barack Obama, all of them are not Jewish.
Right.
I would say that our primary enemy is cultural Marxism more than anything, because cultural Marxism, it's an ideological framework that posits that instead of trying to push the working class and the proletariat to try to rebel against the bourgeoisie and build this utopia, we have to incite ethnic minorities, that is Muslims, blacks, women, all these other people, to try to rise up and overthrow this cis white patriarchy that's systematic in the West. And so I think that most of the people who it's cultural Marxism that we have to fight. It's not necessarily Judaism or even leftism. I mean, like there are some leftists, for example, his name escapes me, but there are a number of leftists who fight for like workers' rights that I would consider my allies, like in the Democratic Party. So like I wouldn't even blame leftism for it. It's cultural Marxism. It's fundamentally rooted in the idea that we have to create this utopia for everybody, and that the only way to do this is to push these so-called marginalized groups of society to overthrow the dominant social paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I haven't finished watching your video, Cultural Hegemony Debunked. Like what did you talk about in the video? Like how did you debunk it?
Well, that was a really old video. The thing you have to know about my old videos is that none of them were scripted. It was just basically me talking out of my ass. Like pretty much every video until I believe the video I made about Jian Gameshi, none of them were scripted. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't agree with the things I said in that video, but a lot of the things I said were unrefined, they were incomplete ideas, and if I were to make a cultural hegemony video, debunked video today, then it would be a lot more concise and a lot more articulate than it would have made back then. So, I mean, don't look at that video as a representation of my current views.
Alright.
Have any of you guys ever heard of a book called Hitler Was a British Agent?
No.
Okay, this is going to sound crazy to some of you, but how do you know Hitler was really doing that stuff for the German people?
Because he was against communism, wasn't he? I thought Hitler was a response to communism in Europe.
Well, I mean, he was
Yeah,
a
but
response to like
he destroyed all the real German nationalist groups that were fighting communism, like the Freikorps and all.
All right, sorry, I don't mean
How
to
do you know he
interrupt.
wasn't a British agent?
I don't mean to interrupt, but Jim Webb was who I was talking about before.
Oh, I know.
Of the leftists that I would consider an ally.
Jim Webb.
Jim Webb, yeah, he's pretty based. But, I mean, like, America, what you're talking about, you said that Hitler didn't really believe what he believed?
Yeah, I'm basically saying that how do you know Hitler wasn't, serving some other cause?
I mean, I think that Hitler was genuine because he went to prison for what he believed in. He engaged in the beer hall putsch and risked his life to try to push what he believed in and try to impose Nazism on Germany. So, I mean, I think that you can take Hitler at face value.
Well, I agree with you. I'm not saying he was a British agent. I'm more or less saying, like, that book might have, some validity to it.
Oh yeah,
I can understand how intelligence
right now. Earlier I heard from some leftists, we're also doing somewhat of a YouTube drama minute right now. I also heard that some like leftists once say that the reason why Vladivostok is a fascist is because he's so obsessed with race and immigration.
Who said this?
His name starts with a D and then ends with an 01.
Okay.
Oh, don't mention it.
Who could you be talking about?
I wonder who Ethan's talking about.
What was it? Demographic Satanist 01?
Yeah, I think it was that demographic Satanist 01.
Oh yeah, he's a pest.
but here's the thing though, Delta's a fascist and Delta has never made a video about race. Well, he has, but just like not really. Even like fascism doesn't like have like any racial elements to it. It's mostly National Socialism. They're both two completely different ideologies.
Yeah, like fascism, as I understand it, is basically mobilizing the entire country for the state. Like nothing against the state. Everything is for the state.
Yeah, and even Delta says that national pride has no need for the delirium of race.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you're in Europe, of course, Europe has a national identity already, so it does like it does need racial pride as well.
Well, I mean, actually, I would kind of be skeptical about that because I think that the ethnicity, while it's not entirely contingent upon race, it does play somewhat of a role. For example, would you like? For example, if my parents lived in China and I was born in China, would you consider me Chinese?
No.
See, yeah, exactly, because I'm not ethnically Chinese. the same as if my parents were born my parents gave birth to me in Japan, or my parents gave birth to me in Namibia. Like, you wouldn't consider me to be those nationalities. So, like, if my parents had lived in France and gave birth to me there, somehow, the consensus is that I would just be as French as somebody whose ancestors had lived in France for 1,000 years. And I don't think that's true at all. I think that, if your ancestors had lived in France for thousands of years, then you're more French than somebody who just came off the boat from, Algeria.
Exactly.
I don't think that's a very controversial view. That's not to say that being French is only contingent upon ethnicity. I mean, there are other factors that go into being a Frenchman other than race and ethnicity. But I think that the ethnicity does play a part in that.
Yeah.
For example, like, there are cultural differences between Frenchmen and Englishmen, or Frenchmen and Germans.
Yeah.
And there are even racial and ethnic differences between Germans and British.
Yeah.
So I mean, to say that like, oh, it's this collective white race is ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that, like, people in Europe, regardless of whether they're white or whatever, they do have a shared culture. Like, somebody in France has a lot more in common with somebody in Germany than they do with somebody in, let's say, Vietnam.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that people in Europe who are ethnically European, it's within their interest to unite and see themselves as sort of a unified people, and as opposed to just being like ethnic. Like, I think that the idea that the nationalism that existed in like 1900 that sort of gave rise to World War I think that's sort of dead in a lot of ways. Like, for example, you
Tom?
people need to people in Europe need to unite. Like, we can't have another World War
I think they are.
No, like, the thing is, like, if we have another war in Europe, it's going to be Westerners against non-Westerners. It's not going to be like French against Germans or British against Germans, like it was in the First World War.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a proof that they are uniting.
Yeah, but like, we can't have these little disparate groups like we'd had at the beginning of the 20th century.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Like, I think that Germans, like ethnic Germans and ethnic Frenchmen and pretty much all the ethnicities in Europe need to unite rather than see themselves as different.
But yeah, man, but what if they don't want to unite? The Poles don't want to be part of the European Union, the Serbs, the British, nobody wants to.
Yeah. Like, that's why I'm like, that's where my trepidation comes from. Like, I understand that people in Germany and people in France, they want to preserve their heritage. They want to see themselves as like, ethnically distinct from other groups around them. But like, you can't. It's like, Europe is not going to survive like that. As much as I hate to say it, Europeans need to unite. They can't.
Well, I think they can unite without the European Union. I see the European Union as like a bureaucracy that no one wants.
Yeah, like, I'm against the European Union.
Why don't they be more like the United States, like where they have like, but not more like the United States, because we have a big bureaucracy. But I'm talking about more like back like when it was originally founded and we had states' rights and the Confederation.
Yeah, I agree with you, America. I think that, yeah, if Europe is to survive, it needs to adopt some sort of policy similar to the United States, where each
or the Swiss Confederation.
Yeah, each state has its own autonomy and can make its own laws, but is sort of bound by some sort of like federalist institution.
I can tell you one thing.
That'd be really cool.
Like, I'm opposed to the EU because the EU seems to be working against the national interests of these countries.
Right, yeah.
But if you have like a benevolent EU, that would be very good.
It would be, but it'd be infiltrated by leftists.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, even today, I think it's probably infiltrated by leftists. Would you say?
I think so.
Well, what if they let Turkey in? That's not going to be good for Europe.
No.
Oh yeah, speaking about overpopulation, do you think that they should worry about overpopulation in Europe?
No.
No.
I think they should be worried about people that don't share the same culture, but not overpopulation.
I think they should problem about those immigrants. Fuck, this is like
Yeah,
a problem
exactly.
now.
If anything, they should be breeding. They should be breeding more before they're overrun by kebabs.
Yeah.
Like I'm no fan of Hitler. Don't get me wrong, but I think that his policy regarding promoting birth rates was very should be emulated by countries in Europe today. For example,
I agree. Russia does that.
yeah, like what he did, he gave it free loans to married couples, and then for every child that the married couple would have, he would forgive a portion of the loan. And if the married couple had, I believe, 4 children, then the entire loan would be forgiven, and it would just be considered a grant.
This had a problem with their economic system, though. This wasn't a good policy economically. I can understand the benefits in the birth rates, but that was a big deal.
But I mean, the whole system had paid for itself within a couple years.
I don't know about that. I've heard all sorts of weird economic policies that Nazi brought in, which affected their economic interests. Because they didn't have any like free market economics people in there who understood what they were doing. They were like thinking about the policies first and not even thinking about the economic ramifications later.
I agree with you there. I think there's... Well, you know, marriage, you always used to get a dowry or something.
Hey, that's a patriarchal America. You can't expect women to have dowries. That would have that would mean imposing a standard upon women. You can't.
I'm sorry. I better go
Speaking about the stupidities of leftists earlier. So you guys are all familiar with Fatty Untrue, of course, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he follows this ideology like called Maoist third worldism, and basically he thinks that like the first world has no revolutionary potential, so therefore like the third world has to like unite and then start a revolution in the first world and like completely overthrow it.
Okay, so how is that going to work? Like,
all the things that can happen in the world, that's the least likely thing that's going to happen.
Well, now I disagree because now it may be happening because they're letting all the third world into the Western world. So.
Yeah, I agree with you, America. Yeah,
but I mean, the third world uniting into like some kind of like confederation and becoming advanced and like chung chung ching chong and like just coming in with like I don't know like fighter jets and stuff and.
Who's third world these days?
Don't be drunk.
Thailand and Africa. Who's third world?
What defines third world?
Well, third world would be basically, for them, it's through an economic standpoint. So it's basically a poor country.
Like India?
It's a developing country, and they exist like in Asia, Africa, and in Latin America.
Okay, well, let's say I'm from like Libya, and I don't want to unite with that guy over in India.
Yeah.
So how's that going to work? Why would I want to unite with like some Hindu over in India? I'm a Libyan, I'm a Wahhabi or something, and so why would I want to go unite with India? That doesn't make sense.
Because to communists, they think classes is a group. So all the lower class like each other, well, all the higher class are like each other as well. They see classes as a divide, not nationality or other differences.
Yeah, that's why I think communists are stupid because I can't see classes at all. I really.
Yeah, they're fucking retarded. They're degenerate fucks.
I can kind of see it like with a Rothschild or something, but even like, I don't really even like a rich dude. I got a buddy who's a rich dude, and we're great buddies. He doesn't look down on me. I don't look up to him or down to him. It's stupid.
No, you don't. It's fine. Fuck. I used to be poor. Now I'm middle class. When I'm older, I could be rich. For some reason, that's seen as 3 different people based on those classes.
Hey, but Adrian, you got to be careful though, because if you're right wing and you're a business owner, you're worse than a rapist, according to these leftists.
Yeah, I'll be on the wall in the next Red Terror campaign, which is why fuck him.
Can you own a gun over in Australia to defend yourself?
No. I'm
Oh,
scared.
yeah.
I'm terrified, man. I want to go to America and defend myself. That's my aim. I'd love to go to America.
You would like to move to
Oh,
New
man.
Hampshire with Christopher Cantwell?
Oh, that would be
him, of
so
course.
fucking good, man. Oh, in my dreams, man.
I think that the whole idea of class consciousness is it's an outsourcing of typical in-group out-group bias that would normally be used to like divide tribes or ethnicities to.
It's another form of cultural Marxism.
Yeah,
That's the purest form of Marxism.
yeah, it's being outsourced to class instead of like nationality. And like this whole idea that people like Jason Unruh are pushing, that we need to promote communism in the third world, this is really nothing new. Like if you look at the platform of the Communist International, aka the Comintern, they advocated for global communism, and the way that they were going to do it was going to like advocate for communist revolution in like third world countries. And this was pushed as far back as like 1919. They wanted to incite communist revolutions in third world countries in Asia and in Central America in order
Well,
to.
it worked. It worked during the Cold War for some of these countries. And look at them now; they're fucked.
Yeah, like yeah,
Zimbabwe.
they're preying upon the vulnerability of these third world countries that don't have very strong infrastructures in order to corrupt them and make the people there advocate for communist ideology. And it's really sick because it's really taking advantage of the poverty, and it's putting these third world countries in a very susceptible position because they're very easy. It's easy to corrupt them. It's easy to say to people in third world countries that, hey, you know what? The reason you're poor is because the rich people, they're taking everything away from you. And if you just take up your pitchforks and just kill all those landowners and kill all those bourgeoisies, then you can live in in a happy society like people in the United States do. And it's really disgusting because they're taking advantage of people.
No, they are.
It's a form of usury if you think about it. And then all of a sudden they get screwed over because then General Hagango or whatever, Obangdo Jagango or whatever, wants to go be the leader and tell them all what to do. So it's a complete lie. Yeah, just think Mugabe. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm just going to third world.
So this is a hypocrisy because I would like to remind you guys we're also doing YouTube Drama Minute for the alt-right Hangout episodes, but this is another stupidity. All right, so the Finnish Bolshevik, when he was talking about Rhodesia, I remember like he was justifying the fact that Mugabe and all like those black communist dudes were just like killing white people, setting their houses on fire, expelling them, kicking all the whiteys out. But the thing is though, because he's anti-imperialist and colonialist, but yet why doesn't he support the colonization of Africa being done? I mean, of Europe being done by the Arabs?
Why does he support that?
Because why is the enemy?
Exactly. It's because, kind of like what Tom says, it's just that these people are so anti-Western and so fundamentally anti-white that, like, let's say if, like, America or Europe was just getting colonized tomorrow, they wouldn't care so much because
they support it. They support it, and the people who don't support it will be called racist, which is what's happening now.
I would actually go further than that and say that they don't just hate Western civilization per se, they hate success. Which is why they're always attacking rich people, they're attacking successful businesses. They see...
And they hate the middle class, too.
Yeah, they see somebody with wealth and somebody who's successful, they see that as robbery against them, against everything that is holy to them. To them, everything is a zero-sum game. If somebody else has something, if somebody else is living in luxury, then that's something that they don't have, that they've somehow taken from them. And their ideology is so twisted that they think that somebody else who has wealth is
worse than a rapist.
It automatically means that they've been robbing somebody else.
And you want to know why that these communists have that view? Because they're covetous. They're just as covetous as, you know, a greedy banker. These poor, you know, communists are just as covetous and greedy as a greedy banker. So it's hypocritical.
And plus, the thing about Rhodesia, me and Tom have talked about this. All right, you're going to the bathroom. So the thing about Rhodesia is that for a short time they did have segregation. I heard about that, but it wasn't even. But after a while, it went away. It went away. There was no more racial segregation in Rhodesia, and even then, they even had a black leader at the end.
Yeah.
You could probably say that apartheid South Africa was racist, but to say that Rhodesia was just the same is just pathetic. It's just
in
stupid. You
Rhodesia,
obviously don't know
in
history.
Rhodesia, the black people and the white people got along. They held hands. They were all friends. You know, there was some strife, but it was largely instigated by these the communist Chinese who started put Mugabe in power.
And plus, I've also heard that like that in Rhodesia, the only reason why there was segregation was not due to any racist evil whitey from all these European countries coming in there and trying to like enforce all these racist.
It was to fight terrorism, more or less.
It was also to because blacks wanted self-determination and so did the whites.
Yeah, it was Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, even they called it at several points.
And then Rhodesia had it even had a black leader at the end, but according to those anti-white, anti-Western leftists, it's completely racist.
Well, you know, America has a black leader now, and they still complain about racism. So it's, you know,
they complain about it more. It's just
they complain about it more, and there's almost, you know, most people that I know, yeah, I've never met really a racist, you know, in my lifetime. I have to say, you know, race conscious, yes, but I've never met a racist, you know. But the few racists I have met, you know, like they've been like some, you know, little hillbilly or something. But if you look at groups like the Klan and stuff, just like the Black Lives Matter, are funded by, you know, these left-wing foundations. The Klan is, you know, the modern Klan, the real guys who are seriously into Klanism and all that, they're like a bunch of, you know, just, you know, a few little hillbillies. In fact, I talked about this with Vlad. A lot of these Klan guys, most of it is like government operated now. Isn't
Antifa as well government operated? I heard that many of them work for the government and they basically beat the hell out of anyone who they don't agree with.
Is that actually true? Or is that just a rumor? I don't see how that can be.
Rumor. That's actually true. You could ask Tom about it.
Yeah, I would say that like the majority of the Klan leaders that you hear about,
they're federal agents.
Oh yeah, not just the Klan.
SPLC agents too.
Yeah, not just the Klan, but also many neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups. All those guys, like all the leaders of those groups, are they're like plants by either the government or by like Jewish groups like the ADL or PLC. Like, for instance, like if you actually believed in the things that Hitler advocated for, why would you call yourself a Nazi? Like, Nazi is a pejorative term used by the Allies.
It's a derogatory term thrown at it.
Yeah, like, why not call yourself a National Socialist? Like, neo-Nazi is a pejorative term. It's like, it's ridiculous. So,
it's a slang word, more or less.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense why, most people who are, as you said, America, most people who are racially aware, most people who are like race realists, they don't hate anybody. They don't advocate for genocide or anything like that.
No.
I'm sure none of us hate anybody. None of us want to kill anybody.
I don't want to kill the only people I want to kill are leftists, but even then I don't. But not because of their race. I want to kill them because of the political spectrum and the positions that they hold.
I see communists as a threat to national security.
Okay,
yeah, because communists, the entire ideology of communism is about killing. If you think about it, they want a revolution.
Yeah,
but like we can stop them in other ways than killing them. But like, why would you make a whole platform like some of the? I'm very suspicious of some people who say like, oh, we need to gas the kikes or whatever. Like anybody who says something like that is automatically a government plant. Like nobody actually believes that. Nobody actually thinks that we need.
Well, a lot of people want us dead for our skin color and if we're capitalists. A lot of people would like hate us for that.
They
They wanna kill
advocate
us.
it. They advocate it in more subtle ways. They say that you're an
Yes.
oppressor, you're a patriarchal cis shitlord, and you need
Yeah,
to.
they're sophists, but they still want to execute us.
Well,
you
I
agree with
would say that
microaggressions or some crap?
like even groups like La Raza, where you have these like Latino like Latino supremacist groups, they don't want to kill anybody. They just want to remove whites by outbreeding them, which is what they're doing right now.
A lot of groups want to kill whites and capitalists, and those are usually communists.
Well, they're usually like black communists in South Africa.
New Black
But
Panther
they don't
Party.
really represent the opinion of most leftists today.
I've
But
seen
New Black Panther
communists
Party-
outright advocate red terror.
Well, I know what you're talking about, Adrian, and I've seen it too.
Yeah, and plus, if you read the Communist Manifesto or anything like that, it basically says that there has to be a revolution, and that means kill.
Yes.
Even if it means kill, then that has to happen for them.
And it has happened a lot of time in history. The Cold War is all about that. Civil wars in Europe, it happened in Spain. I made a video about this.
Cuba.
Yeah.
The goal is to shoot fucking capitalists and take our shit. So, what's the appropriate response to that?
It's to build in the counter-revolution.
Yeah, it's about they want to kill people and take their property. That's basically it's murder and stealing. Murder and theft are the basis for communism.
I wouldn't go as far as to say white terror, because that's just going to be like, if anything, I would see that as the last resort.
No, I don't want that either.
Like
But,
the Russian, like what the Tsar did, or what Franco did. Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
You know, I don't think, like, ultimately, I think that the goal, you guys are right. I think that the goal of a lot of these cultural Marxist groups is to eradicate whites, but I don't think that we're at the point where we need to, like, pick up guns or start initiating violence against these people. I think
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that some of these people are dangerous and really should be monitored.
Okay, yeah.
I'm saying, like, if the police have to line these guys up and shoot them as a last resort, that's a good idea. You know.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be the last resort to start throwing them out of helicopters.
Exactly.
It has to be the very last resort. But other than that, like, let's say all they do is just wave Soviet flags, wear Che Guevara shirts, and just go around saying, down with capitalism. Then, alright, you could say that that's okay. But then if you see a lot of them holding up guns, threatening to kill people, and actually committing those actions, then we'll have no choice but to throw them out of helicopters.
And they have done it before. There was the Symbionese Liberation Army. You have people like Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground. Do any of you guys know those groups?
Oh yeah, they were like hippie terrorists. They were commies.
Yeah, the Weather Underground, I'm familiar with them.
Well, basically, even like the whole term, like where they say, "Ooh, white privilege," or you know, they add feminist elements to it. All like you know, that's the ideology of the Weather Underground. That's where a lot of those terms were popularized, and now they're
And look how dangerous they were, that they actually blew stuff up.
they bombed the federal building. Bill Ayers is also a coward. He bombed a judge while his children were in the building. Thankfully, no one was hurt, I think. But what Bill Ayers, he is basically a college professor now because his trust fund daddy, which this is why I think communism is actually a tool of, you know, certain elites.
Dude, I'm in the same city as Bill Ayers, and I've seen him eating at Subway before.
You've seen Bill Ayers eating at Subway?
Yeah.
You should go ask him something.
I would just walk up to him and just slap him in the face.
You probably would, Ethan.
Do you think you'd be hypocritical enough and like try to charge you with assault, like call the cops up?
Yeah, what's he gonna tell the cops?
I know.
And plus,
I don't
he's
think
like,
he charged somebody with
hates the
slapping.
police. He hates the police, so he's like not really gonna call them because he says that, oh, cops are just racist mass murderers, so I'm not gonna bring them here.
Exactly. So you could just slap him like right in the subway, and the police wouldn't do anything. In fact, the police would probably want you to slap him.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
probably
and
do a
he
medal.
was also in the anti-Trump rallies here.
Yeah, but I think the Chicago police are really corrupt. I think the Chicago police might be infiltrated with communists because they didn't do anything to stop those riots.
I've heard Chicago is like hell in America, like the worst
Yeah,
state
it
in
is.
America. Why are you doing there, Ethan? Get out of there!
Yeah.
Fucking run, Ethan.
Get out.
That place is dangerous, man. I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah, I mean, over here, like when my house got robbed, when my dad called the cops, it took him like a long time. My dad had to call them twice.
Oh god.
Yeah, you should come to.
You can't shoot him. Yeah? There's no gun rights in Chicago, right?
Well, I mean, we could have shot the gun because my dad owns guns, and so does my brother. But the reason being was because we weren't home. We just got a call from like the landlord telling us, "Hey, someone just broke into your house," and then that's what happened.
Yeah, that's kind of.
But yeah, the Chicago Police Department is really corrupt.
Yeah, yeah. They actually like have. I've heard. I'm not saying. I'm not gonna tell you where I got this, but they have the Chicago Police actually takes people to a place where they give them like electroshock and beat people.
Oh, yeah, that is real. That's actually here.
They really got a place where they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also they're in bed with a lot of the gangs and stuff. So I mean.
And here's the thing, though. It's like they usually do police brutality on people that they shouldn't be doing it on. Like they do it on just random people for something that's not even a big deal. For like, let's say a traffic ticket. But like, let's say somebody shoots someone and all they do is handcuff him and slap him on the wrist.
I think that's because Chicago has a history of gangsterism and all kinds of leftist.
Well, to be fair though, America, I would like to bring the Italian mafia back.
Oh yeah, because they actually control a lot of the crime.
Yeah, they ran the south side of Chicago, and the thing about the south side of Chicago, that's where many of our homicide rates are coming from. Well, and this is where I'm going to be accused of being a racist, but it's because that area is predominantly Dindus.
Didn't do nothing. Well, yeah, that's the entitlement culture.
I've heard the Italian mafia in Sicily just declared war on all immigrants or African immigration.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's a good thing.
They said they're going to declare war on all Islamic immigration because the Muslims are they're destroying the alcohol business and they're like causing a lot of trouble.
Mm.
Yeah, and the gun laws here are so strict as well. It's stupid. Like you could probably have a handgun. You can have your concealed carry, which is a good thing. But the thing is, you cannot have an assault rifle within the county.
You want to know something funny about the gun laws in Chicago? There's a gang member who had a rocket launcher in Chicago, and also the guy, the anti-Trump rally. One of the guys was firing an Uzi up in the air at the rally.
Yeah, many of these people like get it from
a Mac 11 or Mac 10. I'm not sure. You want me to post that video?
Yeah, like none of these Dindus actually follow the gun laws. It's only the law-abiding citizens that follow the laws. So they're putting themselves at a disadvantage by following the laws and not arming themselves, and defending themselves.
Another reason why I think the police is also a little bit corrupt to an extent has to do with the Dindu Lives Matter. You want to know why?
Why is that?
Because a couple of weeks ago, like this was around April something, I heard some black kid was in a car. The police stopped him and he pointed a gun at the police. He was 16 years old. He pointed a gun at the police officers, and when the police officers shot him, there was a Black Lives Matter protest, and they even blocked some of the streets.
Yeah, in fact, do you see the link I posted?
Yeah.
Yeah, a guy fired a Mac 11 up. Oh, Tom, you're drunk. Come on, man. Not again.
He drinks on stream. I'm gonna do that.
That's funny. But yeah, the guy had. Here's the thing: he fired a Mac 11, and all these Dindus are firing them up Mac 11s up in the air. What is this, Iraq now? Yeah.
Well, that's legal in Chicago.
Why do you think they call us Chirac?
Oh yeah. You want me to show you the rapper with a rocket launcher? I think he got charged with it.
Yeah, here during the anti-Trump rallies, there was just a bunch of people waving Soviet flags, a bunch of Pan-African flags, a bunch of Mexican flags, and they were setting the American flags on fire. They were throwing shit at the police, and they were just assaulting a lot of people coming out of it. And a lot of them even had Palestinian flags.
Yeah. Chicago has a lot of people joining ISIS.
I'm not surprised, to be honest.
Hey, Ethan, have you ever been to Gary, Indiana?
Gary, Indiana, I think, but this was a long time ago, though.
Because that's quite close to Chicago, from what I understand. But they have a huge problem with Dindu violence there.
Damn. Oh wait, there's a state of emergency happening right now in Venezuela. I just got the news from Soldier 7.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, there's like gangs of people raiding grocery stores trying to get rice and other things from grocery stores.
And they got armed death squads. The Chavez government. Well, it's not Chavez anymore, right? Or is it his brother?
It's Maduro.
Oh yeah, Maduro. He has death squads running around.
It's time to bring out the right-wing death squads.
Well, Maduro has his own left-wing death squads, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll kick his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading an article from Zero Hedge, and apparently people are hunting in the streets for cats, dogs, and pigeons to ease their hunger.
It won't be long before they start eating each other.
Yeah.
Well, it's happened.
That's what happened in Lebanon.
Mm.
Yeah, it happened in China, too, when there was a famine there.
Oh yeah, during Mao.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently human babies became a delicacy in China because there was just such a shortage of food there.
Why babies? Why pick babies? I don't understand that. That's weird.
Because you could kill babies and they wouldn't fight back.
So that's why the Chinese. In fact, yeah, you're right. The Chinese government. I heard about that.
In fact, I think there was a Russian serial killer named Andrei Chikatilo, who he was a cannibal in Russia who killed people and ate them, and he said that he gained a taste for human flesh by eating babies in China.
So he came back from China. What was he fighting in the Civil War?
I don't know. He resided in China for a little while. But I mean, like,
have you guys ever heard of the knockout game?
Oh, that's that stupid game where they go and punch each other.
Yeah, you know there was an attempt to do that to me once.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it was a bunch of dindus that were walking out when I was coming out of the store. But then one of them just called me something and I told him to fuck off, and then I just spit on his shoe and then I just left.
Man,
Well,
you don't
yeah,
see.
the knockout game. It's racially motivated too. Like they're going around like specifically targeting whites and Hispanics and then punching them out.
What's the relations between Hispanic and blacks like in America?
I mean, there's some that have a good relation. I mean, every single race has its problem here in the U.S. Like a lot, but if you go to California, you'll find the complete opposite. You would find that a lot of Mexicans hate black people.
So it depends on like the state.
And I should also mention those are those La Raza types too, that are putting these big anti-Trump rallies. A lot of them are the same gangbangers who shot innocent blacks.
And you want to know what's funny? You know who funded all the anti-Trump rallies here in Chicago? George Soros.
Is that true? Or was that just a rumor?
George Soros funded the anti-Trump rallies.
How do you fund a rally? I thought they were just people just coming out in the streets and causing trouble.
Like some of them were, but the majority of them were George Soros funded.
It makes sense why there's so much animosity between Latinos and blacks in the United States, because I think they're competing for Gibbs by the whites. Because look at it from the perspective of a black guy in the United States. Like from their perspective, if things are not going well for whites, then things are not going to go well for them. Like if you have a demographic takeover of Latinos in the U.S., like blacks are pretty much going to suffer.
Well, I think the blacks who gimme that are not intelligent enough to connect that, because most of them blame whiteys.
And you want to know what's another
Gimme that types,
Most of them actually live off of welfare and government handouts. So they understand that the government is predominantly white people. So
do they?
Yeah, because if white people they become a demographic minority in their own country, and Latinos take over.
If that's true, they should be promoting capitalism and not socialism.
Exactly. And you know why it's screwed up is because when what's his name, the guy after Kennedy was shot,
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson. He created this great society, and basically you could burn your town down, and we'll build you a new one. And that's what happened. Lyndon B. Johnson put everyone on welfare, mainly blacks, and
SKS and just get a banana magazine and just it has the exact same capacity as an AK-47
Yeah.
without actually being an AK-47.
Oh, imagine having one of those in your home. Oh, that'd be so fucking good, man.
Adrian, from what I understand, apparently gun laws in Australia were very liberal at one time, but they restricted gun ownership recently.
Yeah. We had one, well, recently it was in the 90s.
They did a confiscation, right, door to door.
It wasn't that extreme, but we had one shootout, one crazy guy in Tasmania shoot around, I don't know, 10 to 30 people. And after that, our conservative government initiated a wide government total gun ban. And that was it.
Yeah, I think the Critical G talked about. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this. He's a Jewish libertarian conservative guy.
Yeah,
His
I've met
name is
him.
the Critical G. He lives in Australia. He's talked about how gun control is in Australia.
It's retarded.
It's pretty bad, yeah. It makes me want to leave. It makes me, just because of that law, I want to go to America.
Why don't you just come, man?
Because I want to do it legally. Legally, I don't want to be...
Don't come illegally. I don't want you coming here illegally.
Well, I've looked, and it's really fucking hard. Like, I need someone to sponsor me. Does any of you guys want to sponsor me? Does Chris Catman want to sponsor me?
Oh yeah,
Needed, like,
we'll make Adrian a refugee.
We'll make him a record.
Yeah.
He looks the part.
Yeah.
Grow your beard, Mark.
Put a turban on. Put a turban on.
Get out of this, you
Officers will
envious
let you right
cunts.
in. Tell them you're a Wahhabi and say you're part of ISIS. They'll let you.
I'm gonna end the stream right here, but we'll talk in here in private chat.